Did you know approximately 80 million Americans suffer from hair loss, also referred to as alopecia? While the exact causes of alopecia are unknown, we do know that healthy hair grows from a healthy scalp. A hair disorder like alopecia can involve hair loss, which may prevent regrowth. Hello, my name is Stephanie Anderson, and welcome to the Maine Health Show. Today, we are going to discuss the study of products marketed to alleviate hair loss that is reversible and why nearly 99% of them are ineffective with hair scientist Dr. Crystal Porter of Maine Insights and her initiative, Save Our Scalps. Dr. Porter is visiting with us from her office in Chicago, Illinois. Now, Dr. Crystal E. Porter, PhD, is passionate about debunking myths and empowering others to properly care for their hair. She has a patent-pending process to help individuals to tailor their own individual needs. So as you can see, we have a great deal of information to cover, so please let me welcome Dr. Crystal Porter. Dr. Porter, thank you for visiting us here at the Maine Health Show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be on a platform that is about information sharing and, really empowering people with information.
I was able to share a brief portion of your bio with the Maine Health audience. You are a very accomplished professional when it comes to the study of hair. Now, we're going to delve into your business, Maine Insights, and of course, want to get your deeper into your Save Our Scalps initiative. I must confess that I love the clever acronym of SOS for Save Our Scalps because losing hair is in an epidemic number. As professionals, we see many clients who are in distress. So let's start with my first question. What motivated you to go into hair science and start Maine Insights?
Wow. Well, that history goes back a little bit because it wasn't a mission of mine. A lot of people know exactly what they want to do in life, and I was not one of those people. But I did know that I cared about mechanical aspects of science. So when I was introduced to physics in college, I gravitated more towards that particular discipline, not realizing that hair itself is a biomaterial. And so I did my graduate studies looking at the mechanical properties of polymers, which are basically plastics. And it wasn't until I started my job search where a company called Unilever approached me and asked me for an interview at one of the clearinghouses that they have at the American Chemical Society. So they are the ones who introduced me to hair science and the relevancy of my background in understanding mechanics of materials with hair. So that's really how I got started. But it did not take long for me to have a deep passion for what I was doing because, as you know, as a woman of African descent, we Black women, have a special bond with our hair, and we have certain challenges that I think people of other ethnic groups don't really realize how passionate we are about it. So when I became immersed in the research, it didn't take long for me to understand the significant impact that I could have as a scientist for our particular society. So it actually kind of found me. I think things just happened in divine order. And when I worked with Unilever, that was the opportunity to really understand how the different testing mechanisms help to support claims for products. And so I worked in a laboratory where it was called aid to formulation, meaning that the knowledge that I got in the research experiments that I had were to support the claim substantiation. So for example, if you use a particular conditioner, how did it actually make the hair easier to manage? what data could I obtain to help support these claims? So that's really where I got my start. But the majority of my career was actually at L'Oreal. And particularly there is where, so let me step back a little bit. They founded the L'Oreal Institute for Ethnic Hair and Skin Research. And I thought it was so cool because who has heard of, because I really haven't heard of like a big institute or a big player in industry really dedicating a research center for Black hair and skin. So I thought that was freaking awesome. So I jumped ship from Unilever to L'Oreal, and it was just a dream come true. Being one of the first scientists in that particular laboratory, it was really, like I had to use my creative juices to really understand Black hair. And I was responsible for getting enough information so that I could disseminate the research findings to the people who made the products. So while I didn't make the products myself, the knowledge that I obtained helped the formulators to create better products for the specific needs of people worldwide, particularly people who had curlier hair types. So that's really how I got my foot in the door, so to speak. But Maine Insights came about because I had to make a very dramatic transition in my career, because while I loved my job at L'Oreal, I did have two children, two daughters, and my youngest really needed her mom at the time. And so I made the very difficult decision of resigning from L'Oreal and actually working part-time at Chicago State University, but still having the passion to want to do research. And so during my experiences at L'Oreal in particular, it didn't take long because I was fortunate to study hair from different countries. And while there are distinct needs per country, it did not take long to know that there were inherent differences between people as well. So within a particular country, as you know, being here in the United States, we know that all hair is not created equal. So I felt that I could continue to do research and help those in need. That was really the passion that I had to really, work part-time at the university, but continue to do research. So that's how Maine Insights became an entity, basically. I wanted to give personalized advice to individuals based on the information that I had, kind of gathered in the background from L'Oreal.
That is very exciting. And because you are a hair scientist, what recommendations would you suggest for the general public? Being well aware of the proliferation of information out there on the blogospheres, on Google and YouTube, how should people know what to believe?
Yeah, so I kind of put it in different buckets, or the types of information out there, because while I do see a lot of misinformation out there, if you can put things into context, for example, I think the vloggers or bloggers, people who are into the aesthetics of hair, I give them kudos for all of the creativity that they use to, help people who don't know what to do with their hair, especially when it's natural. That's a whole nother challenge for those of us with, curly hair to have to deal with styling from day to day. So I give, an A+ to those who are creative to, really showcase how they're able to do things. So if the expertise is in the aesthetics, then, if their hair looks good and they're able to explain, there is nothing wrong with getting those types of tips for your own benefit. The problem that I have is when people, and I want to say not, I'm going to say not credentialed, but I'm going to say not credentialed in the way of really having the in-depth experience with being able to share information. Because there are those who have had a lot of people critique the work that they do in such a way, or like in science, it's easy for us to kind of understand the value of the information that's being shared because we published in peer-reviewed journals. We go to different conventions or seminars, and when we give information and convey it, we have our peers to really critique us. And it's very common for us to, be challenged in terms of having to justify why we are saying what we're saying. But out there in the blogospheres and, on Google and YouTube, you don't have people to really challenge in the same way. And so when I say people who are credentialed, I say that you have to have people who just isn't working in a silo and isn't isolated from being challenged, always knowing that people have like some type of reference that they're falling on. Experience is great, but when you have experience backed up with, some type of data or somebody actually being able to justify or agree with what you're saying, if other people are finding the same types of things and reporting on it in a particular way, I think that gives a certain level of credence. So that's one of the ways that I try to tell people, always know who the source is and what are their intentions. One of the things that I really try to do is when I work with someone, I try to make it a win-win. So not just a win on information being shared in terms of me getting all the benefit, me like selling a product or making money. I want to make sure that if there is an exchange of any type of value, that each person is winning in some capacity. So that is how I kind of try to give people advice on how to discern whether or not they're getting good advice or not.
That's great. Putting everything into context and being able to determine whether or not the information being disseminated is credible. Jumping back just a little, earlier in my introduction, I did mention the acronym SOS, as in Save Our Scalps. It's the initiative that you've created. Now, what is that exactly, and why is that important?
Right. So I was talking about Maine Insights and how it is a personalized approach to hair care or giving hair advice based on scientific data that is unique to you. Save Our Scalps came about because I was finding that while I was giving advice to people, I'm more of an expert on hair quality. So if you have hair and I can get information about the quality of your hair and then get background information about how you're actually manipulating your hair, the products that you use, what you're ultimately trying to achieve, and the problems that you're trying to overcome, all of that can help me to devise a plan that's specific for your needs. However, what I was finding is that a lot of people were having problems with not having hair at all. So that whole idea of me incorporating, quality of hair knowledge went out the window because the problem that they had was not having the hair in the first place. So how the universe aligns itself, I mean, it's just really interesting because as I started that, I also started meeting other scientists who were looking at the environment of like the gut flora, or looking at how trees grow. And I mean, you probably think that has nothing to do with, hair, but the reality of it is everything that we interact with in our world has to be in balance. And so there's something called the microbiome. And the microbiome is really looking at how the microbial organisms in an environment impact other things in the environment. So if you go out to a tree, your microbiome or the microorganisms that exist on you will influence the tree, as well as the microbiome of the tree and its surroundings will impact you. So there's always this balance, and this is something that is really, I want to say new. It's been around for a while, but I think the research is really growing. And so when you think about it, when I was introduced to that, my mind just went everywhere because I'm like, oh my God, you always hear about gut health and using, probiotics and making sure that you have a balance there in your gut. You also need a balance on your scalp, but no one has been able to really do in-depth research with it. So it turns out, and I mean, this is a whole nother segue into how my daughter got started in the research, but basically, because she was in high school and she has a scientific mind, this is a project that she decided to do. And she came up with the name of Save Our Scalps, actually, because it was her project. But she wanted to do exploratory research to see if there was a link between the microbial environment of the scalp and how that relates to people having or not having hair. So the research that we've done, or that she did in an exploratory way, was able to show that there is indeed a correlation to the different types of microorganisms that exist when you have hair and when you don't. And it is our job as scientists to say, okay, now that we know that there is a link, how can we understand how that link plays a role into the health of the scalp? And so that is where Save Our Scalps came from. And it's important because this is actually just scratching the surface in terms of what we need to understand. We know and we can build what we call like a spectrum of health, meaning that if you have particular types of microbial organisms on the scalp, your health can be, on one end of the spectrum compared to another. And so it's our job to understand how to move that needle, so to speak, into making sure that everyone is healthy or has a healthy environment to make it more conducive to grow hair.
That definitely does explain the importance of the Save Our Scalp initiative and how it was originated. Now, can you please expound on exactly how the SOS services will help the client? In other words, what do they get?
Right. So what we're doing is we have an initiative that is very similar to the type of information or the type of um, report that you will get that's personalized. So a lot of people do ancestry.com or 23andMe. And so you get information that's specific to you. So that's what we're trying to do and trying to build the research knowledge. We're also trying to give the person who participates in this research, something tangible that they can appreciate that's unique to them that they can't get anywhere else. So basically, it is a personalized report about scalp health and how it is how it pertains to you as an individual. But how do you compare to everybody else? So for those who have hair loss, where do you land in that continuum that we have, or that spectrum that we have? So when it's done, and we felt that the best way to go about doing it is to collaborate with hair practitioners such as yourself, because it's important for someone who has advanced knowledge about what's going on with your hair, not only aesthetics, but for someone like yourself who has been trained to be able to combat hair loss. Because we don't want to, at this time of research, we don't want to disrupt what you do and what you're able to provide. But basically, this is more of a supplement for you to have in your toolbox to be able to say, oh, I have a certain level of expertise to be able to help you. And this particular amount of information is going to enhance my knowledge in terms of helping you. So we want you to incorporate what you already know and then get additional information. But then with you being a professional, you're able to obtain the information that we need in a way so that we can build on that knowledge together. And when we get more knowledge, we're able to disseminate to you. But the client, him or herself, will get a very personalized report. They will get a nutritional assessment, because that's something I haven't hit on, but we know that anything that you eat, how much you eat, when you eat, all of that impacts, your overall health, including your scalp health. So that's information that we need to incorporate as well. But because of the way that we get the information, you are able to get that nutritional assessment, because it goes more in depth, more than just saying, okay, during a typical day or week, what do you eat? This actually gives more information in terms of the quantity that you eat. And it actually goes back about 90 days. We're able to get 90 days worth of information about your nutrition. And so we're able to also disseminate a report that allows you to get that particular information, because if you're not getting enough fiber, we would be able to see it based on your lifestyle. And so when we have those nutritional reports, we're able to draw some correlations between not only the microbial environment, but also how your diet plays a role in that. And then we're able to disseminate that information to hair practitioners. So it's kind of cyclical, so we do research, we get more information, we disseminate it to the hair practitioners who then take that information and is able to better serve their clientele. And that goes on and on and on. And we get, enriched with information that we need as scientists to really, level up in the science for that particular area. Now, for the hair practitioner as well, if you do multiple swabs, so you can actually get a progression. So if you, as a practitioner, you have a particular regimen that you stick by, then you're able to say, hey, here is where you started when you came in. And we're able to see the progression of health as we continue to do the treatment for you. So it's also something that a practitioner will be able to say, hey, this is data that validates how I'm able to help people and serve people. And then you get a reputation of, your services being able to benefit your clientele.
Yes, a nutshell indeed. Having been afforded the opportunity to partake in the certification and training in the Save Our Scalps program, I firsthand realized its importance and the responsibility of keeping the integrity of the information gathered and how it's utilized, and how being a laboratory assistant as it pertains to our professional discipline is a game changer. So for those who may be interested, how would this opportunity develop them as a professional?
Right. So we have to be very careful in terms of who we go about partnering with. And when I say partnering, it really is you have to have a certain, not only passion, but also level of knowledge in terms of understanding what research is to begin with. And so what you do as a hair practitioner, if you're interested in becoming a part of the solution, as I call it, it really is setting up an appointment with me, because I want to make sure, I said earlier how important it is for it to be a win-win. I want to make sure that whatever goals you have as a professional is aligned with what we need as well. Because there have been people that I feel, it really isn't a good match, because if you feel that, you want help in trying to, if you want this service to be able to help you give advice, you have to have a certain level of knowledge already. And so sometimes it's not a good match. And so I need to have a talk so I can understand, what your goals are, to see if it is in alignment. So that's the first step. The second thing that people need to know is, not only is it necessary for you to understand research, you also have to be approved to conduct research. And in order to do that, there is something called an institutional review board, which is an ethics board that oversees the research that we do. Because anytime we want to publish research, we can't publish it without having the blessing or the approval from this board. And so anyone involved at any step of this has to be approved, because anybody who we're getting information from needs to have a consent. And so that's the same thing that happens with 23andMe and Ancestry.com. When you say, hey, I agree, that's basically what you're signing up for. Excuse me. And so we do the exact same thing. And so everyone who is involved is a research assistant because they're helping us to get the information that we need for research. And so you have to go through a certification that has absolutely nothing to do with me per se, but this is something that is mandated by the government for anyone who does human research studies. So that is something else that needs to be done. And there is a course that I give that immerses people into understanding research, but it also will qualify them once they take the modules to be able to test and become a research assistant. And with that, you can be a research assistant anywhere. One of the things that I try to do is try to say that just because we have a research project going on doesn't mean that you yourself cannot go along with other researchers in in medicine and health and be able to do research projects on your own. So you can do that because the city training or collaborative institutional training initiative is what city stands for. But once you have the IRB approval, you have that training, then that allows you to do research even outside of what we're doing. So it really is another way for you to become more invested in the well-being of your clients in different ways.
I believe it was the spring of 2018, Dr. Porter, where I was an educator at a hair loss conference, where you were also an educator and presented the Save Our Scalps initiative. Not long afterwards, I was able to begin my studies and ultimately receive credentialing through the city program. I'm so excited about what can be achieved for the client and the professionals like myself who are working to combat hair loss. Now, with the information that you have shared today about Maine Insights and the Save Our Scalps initiative, Dr. Crystal, I am positive that there will be someone today, whether they are interested in undertaking the SOS services as a client and may want to know how to contact one of those certified practitioners through the program, or those interested in practicing as a certified professional. Will you please tell the Maine Health viewers how they may connect with you for that information?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is the Save Our Scalps initiative. And so we have a Save Our Scalps website, and that is saveourscalps.com. And for professionals who want to reach out to me, it's, on the Save Our Scalps website, there is something that says Let's Talk, and you would schedule an appointment with me through my scheduler. And yeah, I'm always willing to explain more in depth so that people have a clear understanding what they are getting into and what they're not getting, because I don't want to mislead anyone. But as far as like clients or people who would like to have this, when you go to the Save Our Scalps website, you also see a list of professionals who have been qualified to give Save Our Scalp services, because a lot of people want to reach out to me and say, oh, aren't you able to, give me everything I need? And in theory, I could, but what I find is it's better for people to go through hair practitioners. So aligning myself with those who have invested their time more than anything to be able to become educated and understand the relevance of what we're doing to better suit you as an individual. These are the people that you would go to. And so I do have a list on the website.
All right, you've heard it there, all about the great program and initiative. I suggest you check it out for yourself. Thanks for watching the Maine Health Show, and a special thank you to our guest, Dr. Crystal E. Porter of Chicago, Illinois. Until next time, this is Stephanie Anderson. Be blessed. Bye.